Hi, everybody. Um, this is Arun. My podcast is called Grabbing Coffee with Arun, where I interview everyday people that are doing interesting things. And I started the podcast back in June this year. So I've interviewed over 30 people, and I just wanted to kind of reflect on what I've done so far. Um, my friend Eddie um, Eddie Payne and I are gonna have some. We're just gonna talk about what I did so far. And Eddie used to work with me at the city for many years. Eddie, welcome.
Thank you.
Um, Go ahead and talk a little bit about me.
Yes, this is Arun Gala. He started the podcast Grabbing Coffee with Arun. Um, Arun, can you tell us a little about your background?
Well, I'm visually impaired, and so I have retinitis pigmentosa, which is an eye condition that it's a degeneration of the retina as I get older. Um, I My father came from India. He's an engineer. He just recently passed away this year. Um, anyway, but my background is pretty much that I went to U of H. Uh, didn't really know what I wanted to do because my dad was an engineer, and my grandparents and all that were like professionals, doctors, and all that. And I didn't realize that I was not a good student. I guess it was because of my eyesight. I didn't realize that till later on. And I wanted to be an engineer, but that didn't really work out. Um, I wasn't really disciplined because I guess a lot of it has to do with my eyesight. And of course, a little bit of partying. But I went to U of H and I took some classes in accounting and I got my degree at HBU and worked for the city for a number of years. Um, it was a good experience. I worked with a lot of good people. The city gave me a lot of different, when you work in accounting, there's a lot of different disciplines in accounting itself, like budgeting and accounts payable and contracts. And there's so many different things uh, that you get experience with. And so many different kinds of people that you deal with from all different races and backgrounds. And that was a good experience. And then I was there a good 20 years plus, and then my eyesight kept getting worse, and I couldn't do that work anymore. So um, I had to find other things to do to keep myself busy. And, you know, I started to teach. I wanted to find something to do. So I looked into teaching English. I teach English as a second language. I'm pretty active in the blind community here in Houston. And so that's what it is.
Well, can you tell us out of the 30 podcasts that you've done, is there anything about those 30 that stands out?
Yeah, all the interviews. I did a YouTube channel for a while, which was very difficult because it's video. And so in total, I've done quite a few people. And the common theme is that I like people that are busy. I like people that are doing things. Like, for example, Adair, you know, the guy's blind and he's got challenges, but he's doing something, you know. So the interesting thing is do something with yourself. Don't limit your ability or don't put limitations on you, you know. Limitations are self-imposed. So it doesn't matter your background, it doesn't matter who you are. If you do work on something, I think you can see it happen because I mean I'm visually impaired and I do marathons. I'm doing the podcast. I teach English as a second language. I get I get satisfaction out of helping people.
See. tell me this. What do you see that we could do to help the visually impaired community?
Well,
What?
when you see someone you, that has a cane or someone that's visually impaired, I think communication is the key. Um, it's important that you talk to them, explain them because words mean something, right?
Mm-hmm,
So when you, um, because they want to be talked to also, they're a person too, you
mm-hmm,
know. They, just because they're visually impaired doesn't mean they're not able to do everyday tasks. They do it, but they do it differently
mm-hmm.
from from a normal person. But what is normal anymore, right?
Right,
So,
right,
but it's a different way of doing something. Like
right.
if you're reading a book, for example, well, I mean, there are people that can't flip a page, or there are people that can't see the page. But
Mm-hmm,
technology now, you have audiobooks, you have computers that talk,
mm-hmm,
you have iPhones that talk, send text messages, and all that. So there's always a way to get around something.
okay,
If you're willing to put in the work and the effort to make it happen.
right. Uh, can you tell me? I know your dad just passed away here recently. How has that affected you personally?
Mentally, I think, uh, for example, my dad was a very strong individual,
Mm-hmm,
and it seemed surreal to me that it actually happened.
mm-hmm,
Okay, you think life, and we're all here temporarily,
mm-hmm,
but you don't realize that because several of my coworkers and friends of mine that you pass away, but you think it's just, you never think it's gonna happen to you, you
mm-hmm,
know, because my dad used to say, like, if your neighbor's house burns, you don't really feel it, but
mm-hmm.
when your house burns, you know the experience. So
Right.
it was a real, challenging. Even it only happened 3 months ago, so
Mm-hmm,
pretty challenging. Just I remember things about my dad, but he never criticized anybody.
okay.
That's you always take the good with the bad, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So he was very extremely hardworking. He was an orphan, and so
Okay. Tell me, grabbing a coffee with Arun, who would you like to interview next?
um, I like people. I really like people that have challenges,
Mm-hmm,
how they overcome their challenges. Like I interviewed Ted Galanos, and this guy has multiple challenges with his hands and with his
mm-hmm,
vision. It's interesting to see how they overcame their challenges.
mm-hmm,
And I mean, it's interesting to do celebrities, but they're not going to give you any more information than what's already out there, right?
mm-hmm,
So,
mm-hmm,
I mean, people say, "Oh, get this person or get that person," but I mean, in our own way, we're our own celebrity, right?
mm-hmm,
I mean,
mm-hmm,
because it's very interesting to me how people are overcoming different challenges to
mm-hmm.
overcome things. Like I see that with catapult when they go running, even though they have their amputees or they're visually impaired and stuff like that. So,
Right. Tell me, Arun, what are your future plans for grabbing coffee with Arun? What's your future plans? Will
well,
you
as long as I
continue?
can, I'd like to continue doing it because it not only teaches me different things about how what things are, and I
Mm-hmm,
ask questions to educate myself and to educate somebody else.
mm-hmm,
Because I mean, it doesn't matter if the person is a physician or they're a professional or whatever they're doing. It's very interesting to ask questions like, say, for example, I'd like to interview a friend of mine that's an occupational therapist. Well, we use that term on a daily basis, But
Mhm.
I'm curious about what is it actually? What is the difference between that and like physical therapy? You know, it
Right.
might be a
Right.
subtle difference, but we don't know it, right? I mean,
Right.
like for example, we're in accounting, um, but accounting itself is so diverse. I mean, you got
Right.
budgeting, you got payables, receivables, and on and on and on. But
Mhm.
contracting, and
Mhm.
there's so many disciplines we don't understand. And
Mhm.
I find people fascinating, especially the people that came to this country, like my dad.
Mhm.
I mean, he came with nothing, you know,
Mhm.
and made something of himself. And that's what this country is about. That people don't realize is immigrants are the ones that built this country with
Mhm.
nothing, with nothing in their
What
back.
what year did your dad come to the United
If I
States?
remember right, he came in the early 70s.
Okay.
He started his school at Las Cruces, New Mexico. And
Mhm.
my dad talks about, I mean, he didn't have nothing. He talks
Mhm.
about eating potato chips for dinner. He told us that
Okay.
story. And whatever my dad has, it's hard earned money.
Right.
And he would tell us, like we have rights over our parents, right?
Mhm.
And in India, there's a movie, and it's called Lavaris. And the word means orphan. And
Mhm.
in the movie, the guy talks about how he doesn't have any rights over anybody because he doesn't have any parents.
Mhm.
Like my dad used to say, he doesn't. He has a sister and a brother,
Mhm.
but he doesn't have rights over anybody to tell him, hey, you got to
Mhm.
do this for me or do that for me.
Mhm.
So very disciplined, very hardworking. Hardworking pays off. I mean, I don't care
Mhm.
who you are.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter your background or whatever, but hard work does pay off. And my dad is,
Mhm. Mhm.
his living proof. When he lived,
Mhm.
it was an example of that. So.
Right. Right. That hard work and discipline.
Mhm.
Uh, well, do you see yourself moving away from Houston, or you think you'll be in Houston for a while?
I think
Oh,
my sister lives in Raleigh, North Carolina,
mhm.
and Houston. I think you know. I know there are people that travel to Houston. People don't like it, but I grew up in Houston. Houston has a lot of good things to offer, like the
Mhm.
arts. Like there's a lot of
Oh
blind
yeah.
groups. There's a lot of it's they keep saying it's the melting pot of the United States, where there's a lot of culture. There's a lot of things to do there. So I mean,
Mhm.
I think every city has its good and bad. So I mean, I think it would be nice change for me to live somewhere else, but then you're not gonna have the friendships. You're not gonna have
Yeah,
you're not gonna be in your familiar surroundings, and there's good and bad in everything.
true.
So
But I just wonder, you think about your mom and your sister in North Carolina. Your mom might be happier with being in North Carolina with her daughter as opposed to being in Houston.
yeah, something we need
So,
to think about. My two brothers are there too, so
hmm,
that's something we need to.
yeah,
Until it happens, Eddie, you don't think about, because I mean, my dad
right,
was such a strong personality, and even some of
right,
his friends are like shocked that
hmm,
he actually passed. He wasn't sick enough to pass away. So
right,
now when you don't expect it, but now you have to plan for things, right? You just
hmm,
because unless, like you say, you don't look for a job till you lose a job or whatever.
hmm,
I mean,
hmm,
you don't. I mean, a lot of even my dad's friends they don't believe that he's gone, so they're trying
right,
to prepare themselves to say, "Hey, this is actually going to happen." I never
right,
thought in my wildest dreams that. I mean, I knew that it was real because I've seen
hmm,
my friend David and other people like you that have lost
hmm,
parents or siblings
right,
and whatnot. But then when it hits you, it's like, well,
yeah,
this actually happened.
right, right,
And it's like the person it's only been a few months, and
hmm,
um, the thing I liked about my dad uh,
hmm,
that I can pass on to people is, my dad never criticizes people or put people
right,
down,
right,
because you don't know their situation. But when he would
right,
disagree with me on something, he would tell me like, "Hey, I don't disagree with you on this,
hmm,
and we're all people, and that's what
hmm,
it's just people." whether you have money, whether you have more of a
Mm-hmm.
position, but those are all temporary, you know.
Right.
I
Right.
mean, you take like let's say for example, you take a top manager at the city, or you take a top manager at IBM.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter who you are; that title is gone once you're retired. You know,
Right.
I mean, it's just it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter if you have money in the bank or whatever, but that's what people fail to realize.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those are all material things, and believe me, when you're
Yeah.
retired, that those titles don't mean nothing. You know,
Right.
I mean,
Right.
I don't care if you're the president of the United States. It doesn't.
Yep.
It's
That's
just a
true.
temporary title. So anyway,
Um.
but I don't put limitations on myself. I'm visually impaired, so I like new challenges. I like That's why I teach English as a second language, because people ask me, "Well, how do you do that?" Well, there's a way to do it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people read my ear, my. That's why I have two ears. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I teach them how to read. I teach them how to pronounce things. I teach
Mm-hmm.
them they can make sentences. I mean, there's so many different ways of doing something.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest challenges is driving. Of course, now you
Mm-hmm.
have Uber and you have self-driving cars and all that.
Mm-hmm.
The new Tesla, the Cybertruck, is pretty cool. You know, it drives itself and all that. So
Mm-hmm.
technology is pretty advanced. So there shouldn't
Right.
be any um, because if you're putting limitations, you're putting them on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Well, I was saying. So I hope I'll get a chance to look at some more of your grabbing coffee with Arun. And I'm expecting big things out of you all. I hope you'll interview me one day. And happy holidays.
yeah, Eddie. I mean, we all have a story to tell, right?
Right.
That's one thing
Right.
I like about my podcast is like I get to put somebody in front and center for a week. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they're here. I release one every Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
and I try my best to just make it as casual as I can, so I'm not sitting there and asking them pointed questions. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting there just drinking coffee or just having fun with them. That way,
Right.
I'm learning at the same time. They're not on the hot seat or whatever. They don't feel like
Mm-hmm.
because they feel like they're talking to a friend, and because we can all, like you, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we can all learn from your experiences. Somebody can
Right.
learn from my experiences
Right.
at the
Right.
city or whatever, because we're all people. We all have different experiences, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like my dad taught me many things, but
Right.
I have to go out there and experience things myself.
Right.
That's why I
Right.
like doing the podcast because there's so many. That's one thing I love about the United States is the fact that um, there are people from all walks of life, especially Houston. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you can go to an Indian restaurant a few miles away. You could go to like you can go get what is that, El Salvador food.
Mm-hmm.
You can get. I mean, it's just Houston is very diverse, and we're very fortunate to live in a big city like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I know things are not perfect. I mean, the roads are not perfect, and we don't have mass transit, and I wish the politicians would kind of take into some of the flooding issues and all that. There are issues with every different place. That's just how life is. So, I mean, even with the person, there's issues with different people. That's just
Mm-hmm.
it's just the way God made us. There's good and bad in everything, and so you
Yeah.
just take
That's
the good
true.
and the bad, and that's all you can do.
So
And
we do the best we can. That's all we can do.
yeah, as best as we
Uh,
can. And I really
what?
appreciate you taking the time to ask me these questions. Was there anything
Oh
else you
yeah.
wanted to say, or?
Well, I just want to ask now. I consider you a Texan. But you're in North Carolina. Um, I hear North Carolina is a pretty state. What
It
is your
is.
opinion of North Carolina, the
I mean,
parts that you think?
this where my sister is living. She lives in Durham,
Mm-hmm.
and it looks like this developed quite a bit over the years. There's three main universities here: North Carolina State, UNC, where what's his name, Michael.
Michael Jordan?
Michael Jordan went to school, and then you have Duke, which is a big school here.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, I don't know the history of it, but I'd like to go back and read some of the history because some of the families that have money, they started some big schools here. I mean,
Okay.
these three schools are, I mean, they're they're not easy to get into. They're
Right.
very
Right.
competitive, like
Right.
UNC, and I mean, they recruit students from all over the world. NC
Mm-hmm.
State, and I mean, they're not lightweight schools, so they're
Now,
like,
let me ask you this. When you think of Houston,
mm,
you think of the medical center, you think of oil and gas, you think of space.
mm-hmm.
Now, what do you think of? What's the economy based on in North Carolina?
It's, I mean, I don't know enough about it, but like,
Mhm.
I think the universities are pretty big because Duke Energy, you got Duke Medical
Okay.
Universities. I mean, also I mean, I heard of barbecue is pretty big here. Uh,
Mhm.
you know that you got a tobacco is pretty big here too.
Right.
Like you
Still
got
is.
Winston Salem, and
Right.
I mean, I haven't read up on what the latest thing is, but I know like Billy Graham is here too somewhere. I think
Okay.
he's located
Okay.
somewhere here. So each place has its ups and downs, Eddie. I mean, the climate is
Right.
pretty good here right now. It's nice here, but I mean, wherever you grew up and wherever you make home, that's where home is.
Right.
That's um, you just have to make it comfortable, and you have to take advantage of the things that are there.
Yeah. I hear you.
So because I know Houston, the traffic is not all that great, but the food scene is good, and um, like I said, there's good and bad in every place.
Right.
But
So that I just wonder. I know tobacco is big in North Carolina, and I guess shipping is probably big there too.
yeah,
Uh,
the,
but
I mean
it's
they
so
call this a research triangle because you got Durham,
okay.
you got a lot of the big companies are coming here. IBM is
Right.
I don't know if IBM is based here, but
Mm-hmm.
there's some big because you got Durham, Chapel Hill, and Raleigh.
Mm-hmm.
My
Mm-hmm.
brother-in-law worked for IBM for a number of years, and
Right.
there's a big Indian community here. That these are all small towns. They're not like
Mm-hmm.
big and huge like Houston is. So,
Mm-hmm.
but
Man, that's good. Well, okay, Arun, grabbing coffee with Arun,
yeah,
you
and
all.
if you guys wanna reach me, my email is grabbingcoffeewitharun ARUN at gmail.com. And Eddie, I really appreciate you taking the time to
Oh yeah,
do this, and
it was my
hopefully,
pleasure. My
yeah,
pleasure.
hopefully I can interview you one day and you can tell us
Yeah,
about your background.
yeah, I'll tell you all about East Texas.
All right, Eddie. Thank you.
Bye.
All
Happy
right.
holidays.
All right.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.